also noticed some of the sounds that relate to them on a very specific the second, and I cannot stress this enough, I don't care how useful the information God has on that human mind. Never take advantage of except with a gun. They have parts and shapes and lizards, but they live well in their relationship. So don't know actually observe this. Aaron said, but some poor-scripted marbles. In any case,
Where's your playlist taking you? Down the highway? To the mountains? Or just into daydream mode while you're stuck in traffic? With over 4,000 hotels worldwide, Best Western is there to help you make the most of your getaway, wherever that is. Because the only thing better than a great playlist is a great trip. Life's the trip. Make the most of it at Best Western. Book direct and save at bestwestern.com.
Actually, to depend on these funds for them, and even parents could afford it, so chose never to let their kids ever forget it.
One-child policy findings are now so common that they're being difficult to do the children of neighbors. Why did we name our child 20,000 Chen? Because that's how much we were fined for having 20,000 Yuan.
Yeah. They named their kid 20,000 Chen, so everyone would know what they had to go through to have. Because people look at the venue control, Jason last minute episode was a whole lot of shitting on the table of business. It's a lot to make that big carry around. And that's the point. The really are money prospects, particularly for young. Because in China, traditionally have very strong preference for quality to see as, in the very real sense, an economic investment. So governments will go to great lengths to make sure that their one child was aborted, from bagging and murder, from sex-selected abortions, to cases of female infanticide. And in some areas, the government reckons a pervasive approach, regardless of gender, absolute children and they want millions of women's sterilizations and forced abortions. This woman is still to Hong she was forced to abort her child for 9 months because her husband had a child in a previous marriage. It makes you somehow more alone than you were when you were totally alone. It's more easy to this number, more and a sense of is the even loneliest number. And I will always let you never have a single report. It turns out exactly somewhere around because we generally don't really know
Still with your family?
Boy, I was still with you.
Shit.
And once again,
Shit in traffic.
Doc, you got something to sell?
I said, give me a couple of days, man. You will buy ass, ain't you? Now,
Hey, I need them all, cuz I'm trying to catch you like Pokemon.
Hey, I feel
I gotta
you,
get them
bro.
off before somebody else do. Alright, couple days, man. I'm gonna get at you like, what is today? Tuesday? I'm gonna at you on Thursday, Friday.
Alright, for sure.
Alright. Hey, you got emails?
I don't know. You're gonna have to show me that when
You in the Discord?
yeah, I'm in the Discord, yep.
Put a dot and dots on me and shit. I'll just look up.
I bet.
And that right there does suggest the Chinese government still hasn't learned the fundamental lesson. People are not machines whose reproductive systems can be turned on or off at will, and pretending otherwise is that all the consequences that you see can be entirely foreseeable, like trauma, heartbreak, to be less anticipated ones like delicious little meatballs, desperate magic tricks, and a factory that can't compound sex dolls fast enough. Actually, that image could be on the walls if you think that. In fact, check out headless silicone rings, because rocket scientists nearly 40 years ago didn't care enough about what their promises might do to real ones. So, as China's quickest part of history of nostalgic acceptance, with 70 years in power, it seems worth remembering a massive number of things back. And if they are running low on funds, which they
That's how it is in these streets.
I argue that sex dolls might actually be a more appropriate tribute. They serve. See like that? So happy 70th to the Chinese government.
Ooh, shit! What the fuck did I do? I don't know what's down here. I don't know what's down here.
Well, one story tonight, we're going to talk about communities. Take place between communities of like-minded individuals. TikTok have created a charming video of things narrowly fitting into tight spaces, something this exceedingly British woman was a big fan of.
Here we go. Oh, that really nice. That literally fitted perfectly. Oh, that's nice. Oh, bloody hell. Goes for comfort, that. Stressing me out a bit, but that was nice. Go on. Oh, yes. How would you find that all these things fit? Do you know what I mean? How do you just sit in your house and just things fit your house?
You know what? She's asking a legitimate question there, and I do think the answer is yes. The celebrate costume isn't going to be about the fight ceremony. It's going to be about the rampant misinformation. Something that we covered multiple times before, Alex Jones, vaccine misinformation, to conspiracy theories. But tonight, we're going to be looking specifically at misinformation that spreads among immigrants, diaspora, and communities. Basically, some stuff like this Facebook posting English titled the fake vaccination on Kamala Harris, which incidentally Facebook has flagged as false information. We're even looking at stuff like this post in Spanish, featuring the exact same video, which as a technique has no such warning. And that actually isn't that surprising. You can see that according to the recent Facebook poll exposé, more than 90% of Facebook's monthly users are outside the US and Canada. When it comes to the hours the company spends on monitoring misinformation, last year only 13% was spent on content from outside the US. So it seems that Facebook's adopted the same general attitude to misinformation that the Oscars took toward Best Pictures for the first 90 years of its existence. Basically, if it doesn't happen in English, it doesn't fundamentally matter. And the spread of misinformation has real consequences. On a report that recently tried to figure out why vaccination rates among Latino communities in California's Central Valley remain low, one woman explains what they're up to like this.
Yo he escuchado al libro de pasajero, como ya. Eso es lo que yo he escuchado, como me gusta de los 70 años. Que nos dice que el virus es curable. Eso es de la vacuna.
Pero lo más importante es que para que puedas sacar una respuesta a eso, no hay que ponerlo ni a la mente del COVID.
Como llegó usted a hacer? Para mandarlo a través de que yo estoy a este doctor y no un doctor como el doctor Fauci. No, es el doctor Fauci. ¿No te la decimos? No.
Yeah. That's not great, is it? And it's a pretty good model of how to manage two social media. It is possible to silo yourself off and have very different experiences of living in America, because she was aware of a Dr. herself peddling bullshit COVID cures, but had never heard of Dr. Fauci. On that point, I honestly kind of envy her. When I think about Fauci, I think we can all agree that we've seen significantly less of him over the last year and a half. That woman will never let the dystopian hell and see Fauci superimposed over a votive candle, or hearing people refer to the vaccine as a Fauci ouchie. She enjoys an inner peace. I will never know. And look, you clearly have a remote idea what to do with English language misinformation, yet as proven by the fact when I say the words philosophy worker or the letter Q, you know exactly what I'm referring to. Or what is hard to imagine this situation could be worse. When it comes to non-English language misinformation, it honestly is. So tonight, let's talk about misinformation in diaspora communities, how easily it can be spread, and what can be done about it. Let's start with that. While some misinformation is basically the same in other languages, in other cases, it taps into culturally specific interests or fears. For instance, communities with lived experience under communist or socialist regimes are often targeted misinformation that tries to stoke fears about socialism. In fact, Joe Biden's underperformance in the majority Latino areas in Florida may have had a lot to do with the fact that before the election, human communities were absolutely inundated by false claims like this.
In the past few months, many Hispanic American voters have seen reports and videos trying to tie Joe Biden to socialism. For instance, this photo has been floating around on social media. It claims to be Joe Biden next to Fidel Castro, but in fact, this is false. It's actually a photo of Henry for former Leroy and his wife, Jacqueline Beer.
Okay, that photo is clearly not Jill Biden, and that is definitely not Joe Biden. Although I want a lot more like him than this animatronic version at Disney World's Hall of Presidents does. What is going on there? Imagine what would happen if an elderly Anderson Cooper got a facelift from a plastic surgeon without a medical license. And sometimes this spread misinformation is exacerbated by the fact that for many diaspora communities in the United States, there just aren't many alternatives in their own languages. Or of the Vietnamese Americans, there is such a vacuum of credible news channels that broadcast in Vietnamese. But many turn to YouTube for their news, with certain channels are in their houses 24/7. One of the largest company in the United States is really good. He brands himself King Radio. He's basically a Vietnamese Alex Jones, as you can see in rants like these.
China completely has control of Biden. The whole situation with Hunter Biden's laptop and the trove of data it contains. I think Xi Jinping has got his hands on all of it. George Soros was part of the financial plot to overthrow the Trump administration. Why are we still being forced to wear masks? Masks are killing people. If you're in a state that gives you the right to not wear a mask, and then you enter someone's house but they try to make you wear one, tell them fuck you.
I mean, you can't see where the Alex Jones comparisons come from. Both have voices that sound like phones going through a wood chipper, both have an inability to control the volume of said voices, and both have sex clearly inspired by Windows 95 screensaver. Also, they both seem to have the same business model, with King Radio selling his audience Viagra, medications, and beauty creams that he claims are made by his cousin, which should be a huge red flag. Unless his cousin is named Steve Clinique, I do not want any creams from that individual. But again, while Alex Jones has been removed from YouTube for spreading misinformation, King Radio is still going strong on the platform, despite the fact you just heard him say masks are killing people, which clearly violates YouTube's ban on claims that wearing a mask is dangerous. And what I guess this means is Alex Jones could probably find his way back onto YouTube if he could just complete a Rosetta Stone course in Vietnamese. And as bad as Facebook and YouTube are, and they are screamingly bad, at least in theory, they can be monitored. But there is another way misinformation spreads that's actually invisible to most people, and unfortunately also happens to be one of the most popular tools of communication among immigrant communities, and that is private messaging apps. The biggest by far is WhatsApp, owned by Facebook, which is massive all over the world. So much so, it has become part of many people's daily routine. In India, sending good morning messages on WhatsApp is incredibly popular, meaning millions of people wake up every day to relatives having sent them one of these, or even a video like this. to wake up. When we came across that message uploaded to YouTube, the top comment on it was simply, nice, which is pretty striking. Nothing else on that platform has a response that wholesome. You just know the American version of good morning will have a top comment like, you know who had a shit morning, Harambe, rest in peace, King. But it's not just WhatsApp. Some communities have their own preferred app. Indian immigrants have the Council, while more recent Chinese immigrants use WeChat. And if you are not on these apps, it can be hard to understand just how central they are to people's lives.
This tune and loading screen are instantly recognizable to over 1 billion people around the world. In China, where most Western social media is banned, WeChat is essential. People use it to text each other, order food, hail rides, and pay for things. Outside of China, the diaspora uses it to connect with fellow Chinese speakers and issues in the country they're living in.
Exactly. Communication, e-orders, travel, payments, everything all in one app. That is so much more efficient than the US-based model where you have one app to convince you everyone's having a better time than you, one that bounces an endlessly refreshing fuel injector, one for pretending to meditate one day, one that lets you pay too much for fast food, one for hoarding mistakes, and one that simply lets you know that you're very old and the world no longer belongs to you. So, I guess, in a way, kudos to WeChat will streamline life's shared digital nightmare into one convenient place. So these apps are cheap and ubiquitous models to allow you to stay in touch with family and friends and also get news and share information in their home languages, which is obviously very appealing. Unfortunately, they're also a huge vector for misinformation.
There is actually a saying in the Latino community, in the Venezuelan and Cuban communities, about la tía de WhatsApp. It's the aunt that goes on WhatsApp and receives any type of conspiracy theory and forwards it to all her contacts. We all have somebody in our family like that.
Oh yeah, we do. And it's almost comforting to know that regardless of background, every single family has one member who when anyone gets a message from them, the first response is to go, oh shit, what now? It's a truly universal experience. And there are particular reasons these apps have become especially fertile grounds for misinformation. For instance, in many countries, Facebook, which remember owns WhatsApp, has partnered with mobile phone carriers to make accessing its services a lot cheaper than accessing the rest of the internet. So, misinformation can spread far and wide without the same ability to check it. In Brazil, a broadband connection can cost up to 15% of a household's income, essentially making fact-checking too expensive for the average Brazilian, which is a truly terrifying thought. And WeChat has its own features to make sourcing harder so bad, because it has a function for users who set themselves up as what's known as self-media, basically a pseudo-news channel, but there is a crucial limitation.
While Facebook and Twitter generally allow publishers to post links that take users to other websites, WeChat bans most publishers from embedding hyperlinks in articles. This means pretty much everything is self-contained on the platform. It's hard to find the original source material and debunk it.
Right, and that is a big deal because who your source is matters. Of course, how they broke rules and made history, which completely differently if it was written by Ruth Bader Ginsburg or Osama bin Laden. So, this information can circulate freely on messaging apps and in closed groups, basically invisible to the general public, and sometimes when the messages are end-to-end encrypted, even to the companies that post them, and they're often passed around on trusted friends and family members, lending them an aura of legitimacy, and it can be truly exasperating for younger people to see just how susceptible their relatives are to this bullshit. Subreddits like Asian parent stories are full of posts like, WeChat fucked up my parents. And listen to this woman with a message that was thrown around her South African family.
Yeah. Please do not pour petrol to the Mason Island. It may cause explosion. This week, 5 explosion accidents have happened due to filling petrol to the maximum. Please do share this message. Rescue 112. I've never heard of it. I've never seen it, so I don't see how I should believe it. But you know what? Because WhatsApp says so, it's true. Look out for this.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's not. Your car is not going to explode. What is true, though, is that misinformation like that is everywhere on these apps. All over the sky. And I can't remember subject things like these videos including promoting conspiracy theories like QAnon, or this post about how unvetted doctors say so we can save ourselves from coronavirus with things like boiled black peppers in water and add lemon juice, it kills the virus. Which would be great news if it was true, but you know, it isn't. The hope is so familiar to younger generations that one son of Indian parents mocked it on TikTok like this.
Here's how you make a grandparents believe literally anything. You're going to start with a plain background and write whatever you want, but just make sure you write it in this form. That's crucial. Now mention any religious text and talk about body, mind, spirit, or something like that, and make sure that you mention a Harvard scientist helped confirm ancient wisdom, because we love those headlines. Now make a diagram that looks scientific and religious at the same time, and throw some Sanskrit on there. Don't worry about accuracy. Beautiful. Now mention some chemicals. I chose Kanye and Drake's name to make them look like compounds. It doesn't matter if they're real or not. Our uncles and aunties have PhDs in science, but that's no match for WhatsApp. Now it's imperative that you insult Western medicine and culture at this last part. You know the drill. 3 dots, 3 exclamation points, cite your sources, and make the image quality a little worse. And that is action.
Yeah. Yep. All it takes is a few superficial labels and style choices to convince people that something with no real substance is actually meaningful and good. Or as it's known in America, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And while that was that was really fun. That guy later posted a follow-up saying that his image had worked slightly too well because it was making the rounds on WhatsApp, but not always as a joke. And we have seen the very real impact that misinformation on these apps can have. In India, misinformation has been linked to violence and deaths, to the point where WhatsApp felt it necessary to create this ad.
She lives away from her family.
First time.
But very close to the house. On the family's WhatsApp group. But today, she's a little serious. Fufa ji has forwarded some random fake news on the family. Kavya called him right on.
Namaste. You have to forward a message or did you just forward it?
Just received it also kind of wrong. And made him understand that fake news can cause violence.
We shouldn't circulate something dangerous, right?
She convinced Fufa ji to leave that. We like Kavya. Share joy, not romance.
Yeah, sure. It's a nice sentiment, but it's also not great. We have to produce a PSA essentially saying, look, someone on our service is dangerous nonsense, and if you can help clean it up for us, that would be really great. And the very least they might want to change that slogan to share the responsibility for keeping misinformation and destroying the fabric of our society, because we clearly can't do it. So what can we do about this? Well, ideally, platforms like Facebook, YouTube, and others would be at least as proactive about taking down misinformation in other languages as they are about taking it down in English, which I know is a low bar, but it does say something about where we're at right now. As for private messaging apps, that is tricky because of how they are designed. And even though some are taking steps to stop the spread of misinformation, they've also allowed it to hard measures. WhatsApp, for instance, started placing limits on the number of chats a message can be forwarded to, capping it at up to 5 chats at a time, which might sound good, but in practice, it leaves plenty of room for damage.
If a message is sent to a WhatsApp group of 20, then each of them shares it with 20 other people, and this happens 5 times, it can reach more than 3 million people very quickly.
Yeah, it can still spread pretty far. I know that this isn't the main point here, but also, how many of us are in 2 group chats of 20 different people each? And if you are, how the fuck do you sleep? How do you get anything done without constantly swiping away notifications? And if you think, well, hold on, there's no problem, just mute them. Then, how do you catch up on anything that's happened in the chat? You just spend half your day scrolling back up just so you know what this gift meant in context. Mom sent that? In response to what? I have to find out. A key problem right now is that many communities don't have the same fact-checking resources that English-speaking ones do. If someone sends you an Alex Jones, you can respond to it with any number of trusted sources debunking it. You can send them something from Politifact, Snopes, or factcheck.org. But if someone sends you a clip from Clean Radio, Vietnamese language fact-checking sources are thin on the ground. There are some. There is Viet Fact Check, a volunteer-led project, and The Interpreter, which works to translate news articles from reputable outlets into Vietnamese. But these are often small organizations, and the people running them are outmatched and understandably fucking exhausted. So groups like these badly need resources to better match the challenge that they are facing. But beyond that, There needs to be public pressure on platforms to do something about all forms of misinformation, whether they are English or not, because a whole lot depends on this. And until they do, if you are a member of one of these diaspora communities, you may need to prepare yourself for more difficult conversations with your least favourite uncles. Although there is one tiny way that we may be able to help you with, because we made some good morning messages specifically tailored for your needs. Like this one which reads, "Good morning. Take every chance you get in life and rethink sharing news from a bullshit source." It might be easier to send that to an uncle in the morning rather than, speak to him. Or you can even send him a video message like this. That's right. It may not be the morning message that they want, but it is definitely the morning message that they need. And for Vietnamese Americans in particular, if any of your relatives have King Radio on in the background 24 hours a day, we made a special message just for you. Download that message in both English and Vietnamese and a few more messages like them at bettermorningmessages.com. Feel free to use them when you cannot handle a whole conversation, but know deep down you do really have to say something. That is our show. Thank you so much for watching. We're off next week. We'll be back after that. Good night.
What's good with it?
Trying to get on some work.
Oh, I can't even help you, fam.
I'm going to need to lay some significant ground. We really have to ground up to this. So, before I talk to you about specific words, I'm first going to talk about birds. And before I talk about birds, I need to talk to you about the
Just noticed I ain't got on my channel. Man, get your goofy ass on, man. Goofy ass nigga, man. Pop this nigga, man. Fuck that.
Every single time. We're going to fix our schools. We're going to get rid of anti-black racism. We're going to get rid of our teachers and the fear that this will help us teach our children. We're going to get back to being moral in Georgia.
Obviously, there is a lot of offensive shit on display there for the baseless accusation of voter fraud, anti-racial grievances, the anti-trans.
Shout out one more fucking tired.
How she spells cannabis, because that is simply incorrect. That looks like how a cartoon snake would pronounce the word cannabis. But, look, was that carving available enough to win over Biden? Probably not. Since this past Tuesday was possible. At least I'm assuming that she was going to take these ahead of time, so there was a small possibility that she won. But honestly, if she did, we'll do into this video anyway, pretend it never happened. So if you're watching this right now, that means Candice Taylor definitely lost. And one of these two guys who shared many of her terrible views within the more media savvy package, they won instead. And they did a good job. They did a good job, one of them. Are you devoting one of your precious few pennies, which many consider to be a far superior product to the direct you put on television? Or are you wasting this yammering on about a barely seen also in a economy that just ended, focused on penny? Hey, you don't have to be. Why are you watching this video? You might respond, because you promised me once, God damn it! Where are my once? And we will get them. Get them, I promise. But first, a little more about Candace Taylor. This was her campaign box. Look, you can put whatever you want on a glass like the BTS or this big snake or this, although ideally never that. But my point is, Candace's box made some brilliant choices. I don't know whether it's the I'm the one you've been waiting for, with one emphasised for no clear reason, or the extra cursive and stencil fonts is the reserve for exercise, like together is my favourite place to be, or home is where the wine is waiting. Or the fact she listed her three campaign priorities as Jesus guns babies. Yes, this is a very good future culture war buzzword platform. You would expect her to be a solid market early. Guess what? You'd be absolutely right, because she was tweeting, I couldn't go understand our movement, but Jesus guns and babies. But for whatever reason, the Saint Holiday remained warlike. Didn't do much for her. And Candace simply spent the final month of her campaign campaigning the public desperately wants attention. That's why frantically seeking out cultural issues that would give her campaign traction. And people like to see it fight. Which is presumably she posted this campaign. You know, which makes in Georgia a small establishment politician. And then there's Candace Taylor. That's not whole thing. We didn't edit that down. That is the complete video that she posted. And I will tweet that said, that's it. That's the tweet. And yeah, Candace, I guess agree on that one, I suppose. Also, not for nothing, that is the least convincing portrayal of a boxer that I have ever seen. And I have seen Ed Sheeran's Shape of You video. Feels like Paul Beasley failing a Zumba class. Now, for a while, it seems like Candace's chosen method would be manufactured manner. The public schools have been formally accommodating the needs of birds, which brings me, as promised, to birds. If you are not aware, earlier this year, a bunch of conservatives was some very weird online reviews about what was happening in schools. Now, already, the Boston State Senator Bruce Hoffman
I'm a little shocked, I guess, is what I would say. About something called furries. I don't know what furries are, so it's school children. Dress up as animals, cats or dogs, during school day. They meow and bark, and now schools will want to put litter boxes in schools for these children to use. How would you say it?
See, you gotta watch yourself out here in the streets. Niggas doing bogus shit.
And this is the least of the problems here. Dogs don't shit in litter boxes. But also, they don't do birds. That's not what furries do. What they do is they use regular toilets where elaborate fursuits are made of orange, where you can get yourself done up with a sexy river otter and very reasonable prices. They are harmless. But Candace Taylor, an adult secret officer member, actually ran on this anti-furry issue, issuing 10 proposed executive orders, one of which instructed no furry-related items will be worn in schools. Also tweeted, the furry days are over when I'm governor, which is just an all-time thing to tweet. Honestly, it's an all-time thing to say. Just try it. Walk into any room and announce, the furry days are over when I'm governor. Do it right now and see if you'll feel an electric rush of power. Don't explain yourself. Why should you? After all, you're the governor and furry days are over. And the replies to that are exactly the sort of response you would look for and expect from the furry community. Quite possibly, if Right side economics. George, I say, roasted. Well, several others simply posted furry Barton artists, and if we ultimately capture and reduce the furry content online, not down to the point, critiques of conservative economic theory and personal rights shows really are the guiding principles of the whole movement. Anyway, I mentioned Candace Taylor's 10 executive orders. She initially only reached 9 of them, and made it clear that number 10 is going to get major trouble. Even spending days opening up. Unlike saying evil cannot be negotiated with and must be crushed. EO number 10 is going to shake the nation statute, which goes down 3 pages, doesn't it? You know what? That number 10 finally dropped. Turned out.
Here. And this is the battle far greater than between the national. It is a war between good and evil.
Yeah, Candace isn't fucking around. She tweeted that alongside I'm the only candidate willing to stand up to the satanic cabal that Georgia Guidestones must be demolished. What was the argument of her campaign? Raising the obvious question, hey, Candace Taylor, what the fuck are you talking about? And at this point, it is finally time to talk about rocks. And let us all remember specific rocks, and specifically the Georgia Guidestones. Because it's okay. They are a total attack on evidence counting. And so that is actually only one representing animosity. The Guidestones are the centerpiece of a lot of online conspiracy theories, which kind of makes they were erected centuries of ancient rules, except for ignorance. They were put up in 1980. I found the permission of this ultimately soon. There are also the functioning astronomical calendar and something that have paranormal properties, like this one. You know what? I for one believe, not about the world, that is ridiculous. What I believe about is the schedule. I fully believe that someday that man thinks to himself, oh no, I'm only going to have to do the Board of Energy twice this week. I'm going to have to move some stuff around. The stones also feature massive inflation into the subject of a lot of investigations. You can see on this episode of the History Channel, Decoded. Looks like there's a bunch of different languages on top.
I just Googled this, and we got English, Spanish, Hindi, Hebrew, Arabic, Chinese, Russian.
Seems like a weird mini 10 Canadians. Is it 10? 10? That's weird.
Is it? Is it? Is that the weirdest thing about the 20-foot Stonehenge outside of Atlanta? The number 10? Also, to television editing everywhere, let's talk about Sydney. Middle-aged man slowly count to 10. Don't put it to dramatic music. It can't just edit it out. People will honestly thank you. In fact, here are 10 reasons why you should be. Well, they are right. And the stones feature weird aspirational instructions, mostly vague catch-all edicts like protect people and nations with their laws and balance personal rights with social duties and guide reproduction wisely, including fitness and diet. You know, some cool, feel-good precepts. It's not that someone like to read the cliches, but the line that the controversy focuses on is maintain count with a 500 perpetual balance. Notice that after history, you could see how anyone who believes in, say, a Satanist loophole or the cabal might see that as a bit of a red flag. And as long as the stones have been around, which is again since 1980, people have been scared shitless of some belief over a satanic altar. On the 2014 conspiracy theorists cited the Goldstones as proof that the Ebola outbreak would kill off much of humanity. And in 2018, Marjorie Taylor Greene, oh yeah, she's involved here too. I mean, how could she not? She endorsed the idea that the Goldstones would be a world genocide. And after hearing a bunch of theories wrapped up, instinctively, I took to debate the Goldstones and point out that a far more prominent directions for rebuilding civilization are for it makes sense given they were built on multiple war and tried who went by the alias Robert Christie. At top of the Delta, he wanted it to be capable of withstanding the most catastrophic events. I can also point out the ridiculous thinking that some sort of global Illuminati wrote down their plot to clean up 95% of humanity on a giant granite postage note and left their secret plan somewhere no conservative would ever find it, rural Georgia. I'm tempted to say all of that, but here is where this is getting a little weird. That's right, at this point. Not on the stage bus, not on that thing that you had to look at earlier, and are having to look at again now. This right here is the weird part, because what research districts, as far as they knew, no one ever definitively uncovered who is responsible. It's not a big thing to look at, ever does that exist. It's only after we've got everything we've seen up to this point right now that we discovered this kind of shitty 2015 documentary played all against Christian people who decided to investigate the culture. In it, the producers tricked the one man who knows what the Christians do on them, the promised never to reveal it, to allow them to open this case containing their correspondence on hand. And in doing so, simply revealed that the content were ordered by a man named Dr. Herbert Kirsten. And if anyone related his rights, and Kirsten is the man behind the lodestones, that is pretty solid, because he was adopted from all correspondence with multiple interests, conservation, research, population control, absolute. But he also wrote at least 2 letters in the UK now,
What's good with you, man? Yeah, I can hear you, I can hear you. Hey, can I get a couple of burgers and a couple of drinks, Joe?
Nah, what's inside the burger shop?
No. No, you can't touch nobody in the business. Hey, give me a couple of, give me like 3 burgers and 3 drinks. Yeah.
This is a state that can't keep federal generals into the side of the mountain. Not like one supremacist framework is right on the ground there. But in the end, I guess what this really means to the right, only 2 factory candidates who can this table ain't what their voices or her platform, or her campaign ad, which is ridiculous, or her class, which is very bad, or her position on furries, which is extremely funny, or her ability to spell right on name, which again is just objectively wrong. That's not how to spell things. But I will admit that when it comes to the Georgia Guidestones, she may have been partially right, albeit for completely wrong reasons, when she suggested that they were a problem, which is totally heartbreaking, because there is one thing which will bring our country together is a good, mysterious roadside attraction. So if you live in Georgia or anywhere and you have a few hundred tons of granite lying about, that will bring you on.
You just opened up over here? Oh, you been here for a minute? I said you been here for a minute? Like you been here for a minute. You own this, right? I said, do you own this? Yeah, I just got a food joint, so I'm trying to see what it's like. Shit, I'm waiting for it, the little diners up out there in Sandy.
Where's that?
In Sandy Shores. It's called Hold Fast, Hold Fast. I don't know, I think it's Rex Diners or some shit like that.
This bill is an affront on the moral morality and foundation of American health.
Alright, bet. And I got the little pharmacy joint too. You know what I'm saying? Shit, I sell bandages, I sell goddamn it oxys, I sell all that shit. Yeah, give you an edge over them niggas, you feel what I'm saying?
A little over 6 years ago, I lived in a pretty decent house. One day I heard a knock on the door. Before I knew it, my colleagues from the other side of the aisle were running footprints in my house. Now, for 6 years, that joke has been messing in and destroying my house. I want to renovate my house, but before I can, I have to get the door out of the house before it does any more damage. It makes no sense to start fixing up my house until we get the goat out.
Oh, I bet.
Fiscal year 17 budget resolution gets this goat out of my house.
Alright, hold fast. I bet. I got you real fast. I got you. Yeah, been on me, fam. I got, it's like, man, I got everything. I got the little potions, the health potions, all that.
Alright, bet. You got the suit out of here?
Yeah, I got it.
Alright, bet. I'm gonna hit you up.
For sure.
That annoying Obamacare goat in the house turned out to be a licensed physician who's been saving lives. And a lot of people do not want her to go anywhere. And yes, I say her, also, you see that goat doctor was a man? What the fuck is wrong with you? Hashtag lazy goes to the office. Hashtag feminist. That topic is actually being shit. Because if you remember 8 years ago, people were absolutely terrified about what Obamacare might mean.
This is a stepping stone for a takeover and a communist killing in Germany. Obama was marching socialist. No! Don't do that to us! You want to kill my grandparents? It was the rebirth!
Look, relax. President Obama did not want to kill that guy's grandparents. And if he did, he wouldn't have used health insurance. He just wanted a drug swinging and declared them enemy combatants. That was his style. So tonight, let's look at Obamacare, what it does, what needs fixing, and how Republicans plan to replace it. And before we start, it's worth remembering just how bad things were before it was passed. Nearly 49 million Americans have no coverage. And if you vote for yourself, insurance will deny anyone anything to risk. Some deny entire professions like air traffic controllers, taxi cab drivers, and scuba divers. And this baby was denied coverage at just 4 months old for an unexpected pre-existing condition.
His parents decided to apply for individual health coverage for Alex. Why? They were turned down. Not because of his age, but because he was too fat. When I put my child on a diet, put him on a treadmill, of course not. He's an infant.
Look, yes, I understand you're upset, but think about it. He's never known anything like your dad's attitude. Look, the point here is, Obamacare was an attempt to solve those problems. It made it illegal to deny people coverage of pre-existing conditions. It let people stay on their parents' plans until age 26. It made preventive screenings free for everyone and created marketplaces where people could shop insurance with potential subsidies. And between all that and Medicaid expansion, more than 20 million people gained coverage in our uninsured rates at a historic low. And yet, for many people, like this woman, whose treatment for breast cancer was covered under Obamacare, the law was just always too closely associated with the man responsible for it.
I absolutely detest hearing the word Obamacare. Detest it. It just should have been given a more proper name, not being over proposing.
Okay, well, to be clear, it did have a problem. The Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, but that does go to show you it matters what people call something. Not ever still be as popular as though real name was blunt shots for help. No. So that's why it's really should change. And some of the early accusations held against Obamacare still linger, just as Trump and Republican officials Bill Aiken in Florida throughout this plastic in the town hall.
Here's the problems I have with the Affordable Care. Number one, There's a provision in it that anyone over the age of 74 has to go before what is effectively a death penalty.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Huh? No, why you say that? No, I was on the game. I was working. I'm saying, babe, can you please, would they want to reschedule it? No, that'll be perfect. I'll be high. I can go to sleep. Yeah. Is it far out or is it just the one right up the street? Oh, hell no. Yeah, I'll do Monday. Because they got one more tooth they gotta fix. Yeah. Huh? Oh, my other phone? Oh, my shit probably tapped. That's some tap shit. And I'm looking at my shit, and my shit is on, my shit is on Wi-Fi. What the fuck? And it says nice. What?
But it is a little worrying that that is literally encouraging you to imagine a better healthcare plan. Close your eyes. Dream of a better way forward. Now open your eyes and tell us what you can do.
Hold on for a second.
Nothing. No more and a better healthcare plan. If you go there, this is the entire website. A single page with just 2 sentences of text. And the fucking ad again. And if you click on the ad, it sends you back to the website and so on and so on and so on until you don't even want healthcare because you're begging for the sweet relief from death. Every time you get near something resembling a Republican plan, it seems to just recede into the distance. In January, Trump said he was working on something and it was very much formulated going to the final strokes. But what happened when Tom Price, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, was asked about it and his confirmation?
President Trump said he's working with the replacement plan for the ACA, which is nearly finished and will be revealed after confirmation. Is that true? It's true. He said that, yes.
It's funny, because the president lies to us all the time with no repercussions. I've seen what the children are laughing at is. Oh, dear. If we need any more proof of how unprepared Republicans are right now, let me show you one of the draft bills they circulated. It is just 7 pages long, and it ends abruptly with the word "placeholder." And one member of Congress actually tried to spin that as a positive.
This placeholder provides the clearest signal yet that we're working with patients and healthcare groups to draft language that balances important health status protections with necessary risk mitigation tools.
Oh, please. If your spouse made you a birthday card that said placeholder, that would not be a single word with the best language to express their feelings for you. It would signal they forgot your birthday because they're in shower from the office, and deep down, I think you actually know that. The best sense you currently have what the government wants to do is on previous plans for both Price and Leroy. And for these talking points, Ryan came back and then the congressional recess. You're going to be doing a few phrases from this a lot in the coming months. So let's take a moment to understand what they actually mean. And let's start with
Hello?
which Ryan has been talking about before.
It said do not disturb was on my phone.
Which is what our plan is, are refundable tax credits for people who apply for the coverage.
Yes, refundable tax credits. Basically, free money to help pay your premiums, which is a little surprising for Ryan. And it probably takes wages by writing in the check, find a job, the market for things has more value. But you should know, this document suggests tax credits will be based on age, not income, meaning theoretically, 61-year-old billionaire Bill Gates will get a bigger subsidy than a 27-year-old making minimum wage. And Gates does not do that one. They're just blowing on your $10 haircuts and orthopedic sweaters. But the real risk here is subsidies ending up too small for those who need them the most. Tom Price has proposed a credit of $1,200 to people aged 18 to 35 and $3,000 to people 15 and up, which is roughly a third the cost of the most bare-bones plans on the market today. A tax credit that small helps cover your health insurance the way a phone covers your dad's arse. It doesn't, and there's something that is fundamentally wrong about that. Now the next big turning here is health savings accounts, or HSAs, tax-free accounts where you can save money to pay for healthcare costs. Republicans love it.
In your experience, why did these savings accounts, why are you pushing so hard for them? Why do you think they're effective? Because you're spending your own money as opposed to someone else's. It's like when my daughter goes to the mall with my credit card, or when I go to the mall with my credit card, our purchases come back quite different.
Okay, setting aside that healthcare is wonderful shopping at the mall, shouldn't you come back with different purchases that your daughter, regardless of whose credit cards you have? If you came back to the mall with a tongue ring, a bottle of Planet hair dye, and a gas queen front top, it will raise a lot of questions having nothing to do with healthcare. Now, the key problem with HSAs should be obvious here. They're great for rich people. They're basically a tax shelter. But if you're too poor to save, or you get sick enough to blow through what you save, you're not going to be covered, and you have that phone problem again. And people seem to understand that, just as in the reaction when Joni Ernst tried bringing them up on town hall. And your problem is, I don't have enough money, and the proposed solution is, what it's rather do is a very fancy piggy bank. So let's move on to another key idea. Block grants. A phrase perfectly designed to bore, because it combines block, the most nothing shape, with grant, for co-workers nothing boyfriends. I don't believe we've met. Yes, we have, 6 times. I'm grant. Leroy wants to use block grants to fund Medicaid, starting to provide healthcare to be poorest Americans. Basically, he wants to stop guaranteeing to pay each state a percentage of their Medicaid costs, and instead just send them a fixed block of money. But if costs start to rise, and the block grant doesn't keep pace, guess what? It's that farm. Farm. And you should know, 8 years ago, Ryan proposed a block grant program that the study estimated could keep as many as 20.5 million people off Medicaid over a decade. That's the kind of thing which so chilling even more, you just don't see it coming. It's like you found out that Grant was a serial killer. I feel in plain sight, but none can remember my face. I am Grant. We've now met 7 times. But now, let's move on to the final big talking point here, and I'll let Paul Ryan explain.
We believe that state high-risk pools are a smarter way of guaranteeing coverage for people with pre-existing conditions.
Yes, high-risk pools. Now, they don't sound like something you find in Jeremy Miller's house, but what they actually do is isolate the sickest people in their own insurance group. Now, in theory, this brings everyone else's insurance rates down, but there's an obvious problem here again. Those pools are going to be incredibly expensive, which is fine if the government subsidises it properly, but if it doesn't, that's right, it's thrown up everybody. Because 3 years ago, a study estimated that adequately funding high-risk pools just to maintain Obamacare levels of coverage would cost around $178 billion a year. only the wind in it. That is 1/178 of what is needed. Imagine you ask for 178 pounds of grade 8 premium pulp, but instead of 3 sevens, someone put in 6 with 7 tons. Well, Tom Price's plan is 6 7 punctons. So those are the 4 big bullet points. But perhaps the most significant about this document is not what's inside it, but what is not in there. Because there is no replacement for the individual mandate. Obamacare requires that you have insurance or pay a penalty. And it is the thing that people think the most.
The individual mandate was unconstitutional.
That would be the original mandate. That would be a pre-employed part of the Affordable Care Act.
That should be get rid of the individual mandate. He's got 2 thumbs and hates the individual mandate. This fucking guy. But the mandate keeps younger, healthier people in the system, which is crucial to lower the cost for everyone else and to keep in popular provisions like, among other things, not punishing fat babies. The Republican solution is to make it really painful for you to get insurance again if you drop it at any point for any reason. They use the perfect second term continuous coverage incentive. But it has to involve some kind of penalty, maybe a higher premium or even denial of coverage. And they are not keen to talk about details there. Remember the placeholder proposal? That was in place of an explanation of the continuous coverage incentive. Basically, this says something so toxic, they'd rather just go abruptly silent. Much like when you're a white person singing karaoke and you realise, uh-oh, we have an N-word coming up. So, Republicans are in a real bind here. They need a plan and soon. And what Close and Brown have given you so far seems to shift costs from the government to the people and from the healthy to the sick, and fewer people are going to be covered. So good luck fixing that, Republicans. Well, and there's actually one more problem. Because you remember how much shit we gave President Obama for saying he could keep your doctor? I think it reminds you what Donald Trump has promised that you are going to do.
Everybody's going to be covered. This is an un-Republican thing for you to say, because a lot of times they say, no, the lower 25% they can't afford private. But
Universal health care.
I am going to take care of everybody. I don't care if it costs me votes or not. Everybody's going to be taken care of much better than they're taken care of. Who pays for it? The government's going to pay for it, but we're going to save so much money on the other side. But for the most part, it's going to be a private plan, and people are going to be able to go out and negotiate great plans with lots of different competition, lots of competitors, with great companies, and they can have their doctors, they can have their plans, they can have everything.
They can have everything, period. So anything short of that is a disaster, and insurers are going to need an answer soon, Republicans. So tick tock, motherfuckers, because you don't get to play something around out of this one again. Focus this part of the show on complex, depressing policy issues. Something fun like CO2 emissions from horses, or space poverty, or the proliferation of special purpose taxing districts. A topic so boring you didn't even realise we literally already did that exact story last year. And we want to keep doing those kind of things, but unfortunately we can't until we address something even bigger, the concept of reality itself. And that is because of this guy. Now, since taking office around 412 years ago, Trump has made it clear that reality is not important to him. Think about it. He's exaggerated the size of his inauguration crowd. He said the election was marred by mass voter fraud, with no one to prove of that. He also falsely claimed that, compared to Muslims, it was almost impossible for Christian refugees from Syria to get into the US. He even lied about the weather during his inauguration.
It was almost raining. The rain should have started raining, but God looked down and he said, we're not going to let it rain on your speech.
No, he didn't. First, it did rain while you were speaking. That's why your wife was holding up an umbrella and people behind you were wearing ponchos. And second, if God did look down, his only thought would be, wait, the Mormon Tabernacle Choir? Come on, I'm sick of them and I'm God. Could you not vote silence, or was silence somehow boycotting this thing too? So So that is where we are currently at. We have a president capable of standing in the lane and saying it was a sunny day. And before we go any further, Donald Trump lies is clearly not a fresh observation. Liberals are probably thinking, wow, hot take there, Johnny. Next you're going to tell me that Obama is aloof, Dick Cheney is evil, and Paul Ryan doesn't climax until he checks his Fitbit to see how many calories he's burned from cooking. And you know what? If you're on the other side, if you're on the right, you're probably going to be outright another blizzard and snowflakes for the last cut tonight with Johnny Trigger warning. And yes, I know all other presidents have lied. PolitiFact found that just over a quarter of President Obama's statements they evaluated were to some degree or false with Trump. That number is currently over 2/3. Perhaps that is why one reporter who's been covering Trump found himself saying this.
This is what makes covering Donald Trump so very difficult. What does he mean when he says words?
Wow! What does it mean when he says words? We are talking about the president like a Tinder match we've been on 4 dates with. I asked him if he could hang out this Friday, and he said, Friday, ... I'm starving. Nice emoji, poop emoji. What the fuck does that mean? What does it mean when he says words? Trump's relationship with the truth is going to be of profound importance going forward, because any policy discussion has to begin with a shared sense of reality, and Trump's reality can change within a single sentence.
When you hear 4.9 and 5% unemployment, the number is probably 28, 29, as high as 35. In fact, I even heard recently 42%.
Well, which one is it then? Because a 4.9% rate might result in a cautiously constructive monetary policy, whereas a 42% rate might result in the purge. So tonight, we thought it would be useful to try and answer 4 basic questions. How did we get a pathological liar in the White House? Where are his lies coming from? Why do so many people believe him? And what can we possibly do about it? And to that first question, Trump's lying is obviously nothing new. He has a well-documented 40-year history of bullshit. He lied about being invited on this show and about the ratings for the Celebrity Apprentice. He pretended to be his own publicist. Even his building, Trump Tower, is not as big as he says it is.
He inflated the floor numbers. His 58-story building became a 68-story building.
It made a lot of sense in his mind, because if you're renting a room, you'd rather be on the 14th floor than on the 6th floor.
Just stir up thought for confused firefighters turning up to that building. The smoke alarm's going off in Penthouse B on the 68th floor, which is apparently an outdoor studio on the 58th. Quick! It's an emergency! But lies like that are almost charm. What is less obvious is when he started lying about the president's birth certificate, and then, as a presidential candidate, started making troubling statements like these.
The murder rate in the United States, it's the worst, the highest it's been in 45 years.
Our president wants to take in 250,000 from Syria.
Our gross domestic product, a sign of strength, right? But not for us. It was below 0. Who ever heard of this?
Okay, just real quick on those. No, it isn't. No, he didn't. And no one's ever heard of a GDP below 0, because that is fucking impossible. Now, any one of those voices have disqualified him for all this, but we were so accustomed to Trump's nonsense, we could just shrug it off as Donald being Donald. Even his own advisors, like Peter Thiel, argued that people shouldn't worry about the statements because it didn't really mean it.
I think a lot of the voters who voted for Trump take Trump seriously, but not literally. And so when they do things like the Muslim comment or the wall comment, things like that, it's not, the question's not, are you going to build a wall like the Great Wall of China, or, how exactly are you enforcing these tests? What they hear is, we're going to have a saner, more sensible immigration policy.
Oh yeah, that is definitely the sense I got from watching those subreddits. Yes, while we are all furiously chanting build that wall, we all understand in this context wall is a common use of metonymy, or a figure of speech in which one word, wall in this example, is used as a stand-in for a saner, more sensible immigration policy. Now, if you will, there's up that Trump the bitch. And yet, the travel ban literally happened, and as for the wall,
The wall is getting designed right now. A lot of people say, oh, Trump was only kidding before. I wasn't kidding. I don't care.
exactly! When he says he's going to build a wall, he means it. Now, it might be 30 feet high and labelled 156 stories, but assume that it's coming. So it was worth taking him seriously. Trump was telling the truth about his solutions to the problems he was lying about. And he is now making real policy based on fake facts, which brings us to our second question: where is his information coming from? Now, Trump himself has admitted he gets a lot of it from TV, which may explain why he speaks so confidently about cable news statements like crime and terrorism. But when it comes to the nuts and bolts aspects of government, like the nuclear triad, he struggles. And he famously flagged a question on the triad during an early debate in an exchange that ended like this.
So the three legs of the triad, that you have a priority building, or
Well, I think nuclear is just the power and the devastation that's very important.
Now that is terrifying. The components of that triad are important. It is unacceptable not to be able to name every single one of them. They are nuclear weapons, not your children. What is her name, Donald? What is her name? I'll give you a hint. It starts with T, and it's not the other one. And you would hope that as president, he'd now be getting information from primary sources and readings, but Trump still watches a phenomenal amount of cable news. His tweets frequently echo things that just aired on TV. Just 2 weeks ago, he tweeted, ungrateful traitor Chelsea Manning, who should never have been released from prison, is now calling President Obama a weak leader terrible, which is interesting, because Chelsea Manning never used the word weak leader, but that phrase was used on Fox News just 15 minutes before he tweeted in a segment which also called Manning an ungrateful traitor. So the president seemed to tweet about whatever information he just saw on cable news. If someone changed the channel to the Sprout Network, he tweets, "Kayu's life is boring even for a cancer kid. Sad." Now, to give you a sense of just how much he watches cable news, a few hours later he was on Air Force One, and you could actually hear the commercials on Fox News blaring in the background.
Very good. Thank you.
That's real. That is the Empire Carpet jingle playing at full blast. Trump just made the interior of Air Force One sound like the living room of an old person who died 3 days ago and who nobody's found yet. He watches so much cable TV, he presumably also gets daily briefings from this guy.
I'm a professional cowboy, and I'm New Kevin. Been cowboying for 25 years. I've broken 14 bones, had 2 concussions, and a bunch of money. I know pain, and I don't want any more of it, especially when I can.
Okay, stop. I have so many questions. Is cat a real verb? If you've only been cowboying for 25 years, what did you do before you were cowboying? And why are you in the library and one that doesn't want to overdo it with the books? You fascinate me. But Trump doesn't just watch cable news. He also takes information from frighteningly unreliable sources such as Breitbart, the organisation which gave us Steve Bannon, now Trump's chief strategist. Breitbart has published such eligible stories as birth control makes women unattractive and crazy, racist pro-Nazi roots of Planned Parenthood field, and hoisting high and proud, the Confederate flag proclaims a glorious heritage. You know, the kind of headlines you see your old high school friends share on Facebook and think, oh, that's a shame. I guess Greg sucks. But Trump's trust in Breitbart actually goes way back. A few years ago, Trump was challenged by Bill O'Reilly, who correctly pointed out that his claim that thousands of Muslims were seen celebrating in New Jersey on 9/11 was based on no evidence whatsoever. And this is how Trump responded. Well, I
learn a bit longer. You know, this just came out from Breitbart. I mean, literally, it just came out. Trump vindicated, 100% vindicated. There were thousands that would have been reported. But this article says they were swarming. This article says they were swarming all over Twitter. So I don't know what that means, but it means a lot of people.
Wait. Holding up a Breitbart article does not make you seem more credible. You might as well have gone, oh, hold on a second, Bill. Hello? Okay, thanks. Sources are saying I'm right, Bill, but sources are... Talk to them! Talk to their sources! And Trump's sources get even worse, because he also cited articles to support his reasoning on that claim from info-wars on websites run by this guy.
Hillary and Obama want to make you poor and pathetic. We have all the white papers. They hate you. They hate prosperity. They hate God. They hate children. But goddamn to them.
That man is Alex Jones, and that is actually him at his most presentable. That is Alex Jones at a job interview. That is Alex Jones meeting his girlfriend's parents for the first time. Now, in his more outspoken moments, Jones has argued that the government has the ability to control tornadoes, that the Boston Marathon bombing was a false flag attack, and that tap water is a gay bar, and that they are putting chemicals in the water that turn the brilliant frogs gay. And then there is the Sandy Hook school shooting.
Yeah, so Sandy Hook is a synthetic, completely fake, with actors, in my view, manufactured. I couldn't believe it at first. I knew they had actors there, clearly, but I thought they killed some real kids. And it just shows how bold they are, that they clearly used actors.
Now, that is not just a face. It's stupid. If the government has actually hired child actors, there is no way their stage parents would have stopped talking about it. Well, he didn't get the Tides commercial, but he did look a leading role in the government-sponsored false flag attack. It's the same director who did the moon landing. We're very excited. Trump is already such a fan that Alex Jones himself has said it is surreal to talk about issues here or there, and then one good word hear Trump say it 2 days later. And I would be skeptical of that if Trump hadn't gone on the Jones show and said this.
I just want to finish by saying your reputation's amazing. I will not let you down. You will be very, very impressed, I hope. And I think we'll be speaking a lot.
You know, I guess it makes sense that Donald Trump wants to impress Alex Jones. Why would you want to drain the swamp if not to eradicate all those gay frogs? You stay there. You too stay where you are. This is really dangerous, though, because there is a pattern here. Trump sees something that jives with his worldview, doesn't check it, half remembers it, and then passes it on, at which point it takes on a life of its own and needs to validate itself. Let me try and show you that machine in action. Trump's constant claim that millions of people voted for him originated, as far as anyone can tell, from some dude on Twitter who claimed in November, while providing no evidence, we have verified more than 3 million votes cast by non-citizens. The next day, InfoWars picked that up and it spread like jet fuel among the right-wing sites. And it was quickly debunked by multiple outlets, but despite that, days later, President-elect Trump started tweeting about millions of illegal votes and serious voter fraud in states like California. And by early December, people were on TV expressing similar concerns.
But we have a privilege in this country, and we need to be legal, not like California, where 3 million illegals voted for from the media.
And that right there actually answers our third question, why so many people believe Trump. Because if you get your news from similar sources, as many people do, he doesn't look like a crack. He looks like the first president ever to tell you the real truth. But rumors can be really tenacious, and I'm thinking, what rumor do you think when you hear the name Richard Gere? Well, here's the thing. There is no proof that he did that. If you think about it, it's ridiculous. Have you ever held one of those things? There's no way it was possible. But if the president went on TV and told you it was true, you'd go, I knew it! Thank you! I knew it! Finally someone said it! But that loop gets much more dangerous when you're not talking about something as simple as journalists. Trump validated the supporters' beliefs about voter fraud, and in turn, they validated his. Because even when he was directly confronted with the lack of evidence, this is how he responded.
You know what's important? Millions of people will say, if you were to look on one of the other networks and all of the people that were calling them, they're saying, what do you do with Mr. Trump? What do you do with them? They're smart people.
Well, just because they believe you and you believe them doesn't make it true. This is like Peter Pan, where believing in fairies will keep Tinkerbell alive. This is a magic thing, Peter. She has Lou Gehrig's disease. And maybe instead of clapping you should have on the Ox Bucket Challenge, then she'd still be alive. I'm sorry, Peter, but she's dying. Tinkerbell's dying. The point is, even if you take the kindest approach here and assume Trump made an honest, innocent mistake and passed along a news story without checking it, when he was presented with a lack of evidence, he disregarded that fact, at which point he is lying. And it seems no one in the White House has a problem with that. Because when asked to justify the president's views, this is what Sean Spicer said.
I think the president believed that for a while, but no understanding belief that he's maintained. It's a belief he maintains. It's a belief that he's maintained for a while. And as I've noted several times now, he's believed this for a long time. It was a comment that he made on a long-standing belief. I've asked him to answer this question twice. He believes what he believes based on what he's provided. What does that mean for confidence? He said, yeah, I've answered your question. Have you?
No, you haven't, Melissa. No, you haven't. The incidence of voter fraud is a verifiable fact, and faith and facts are like Bill Pullman and Bill Paxton. When you confuse them, it actually matters. Real people get hurt when you make policy based on false information. Billions will get spent on a war that won't work, to prevent a crime wave that isn't happening, for refugees sent in dangerous situations to prevent Bowling Green-style massacres that never took place. So, what are we going to do? Well, the first is going to be a key element in helping us sort out fact from fiction, and they are under attack. This administration has seized on small corrections in news coverage to paint critical outlets as fake news, attempting to delegitimize all of it. And this is only going to get worse. Steve Bannon has already labelled the media the opposition party, although there does seem to be one exception.
News report said the only seat that was reserved for the media at Trump's news conference Wednesday was in the front row, and it was for Breitbart News.
Oh, that is some blatant favoritism. You are Snow White introducing the dwarves, saying, meet Grumpy, Sleeping, Sneezing, fucking awesome Big Dick Cool Dwarf, and the three others. And if you are thinking that Breitbart went out of their way to ask a challenging question, think again.
Public change and public fake news and all the problems that we've seen over the course of the election. What reforms do you recommend for this judiciary here?
And I actually have two follow-up questions. Does this feel good? And will you let me know when you're going to come? Just tap my head. The evidence here is obvious. With a completely delegitimised press, you're only going to have one source to get your news from, as one congressman happily pointed out.
Better to get your news directly from the president. In fact, it might be the only way to get the unvarnished truth.
Getting your news directly from the leader is basically the philosophy of North Korea. And the notion that our leaders should be able to pass on this truth with impunity should be allowed to absolutely everybody, regardless of politics. Republicans should badly want our sense of objectivity to remain intact, just in case the Democrats ever find their own appealing reality star to win back the White House. RuPaul, for instance. Make America fierce again. Make America fierce again. So we all need to commit to defending the reality of facts, but it's going to take work, as we've already seen. Protests, calls to legislators, and lawsuits are effective ways to try and drag the administration back to reality. But this needs to go down to a personal level as well. We should make extra efforts on social media to try and verify stories before passing them on, especially if they confirm pre-existing biases. Ask questions of yourself like, is this a source I know and recognise? Has anyone fact-checked this? Does it link to prior sources? And do those sources match what the story says? And if you see an outlet repeatedly getting things wrong and never correcting it, maybe stop trusting it, whether that outlet is some idiot's blog or the White House. And because I know our president will not follow any of those suggestions, often because he does not watch this show. There is one small man who wanted to try and sneak some useful facts into his media diet. As we now know, he watches more than paper news. So we've actually created a series of commercials in an attempt to bring home to speed on some information on shows that we know he watches every day. Take a look.
Attention catheter patients. I'm a professional cowboy and I use catheters. Been cowboying for 25 years and there's two things I know. I don't like paper when I can. And the nuclear triad consists of land-based missiles, submarine launch missiles, and aerial bombers. Some pieces are equipped to strike back in the event one of those is destroyed and deters an attack on us or our allies. So that's the nuclear triad, in case you're the kind of person who might really need to know that.
That ad will air tomorrow morning between 8:30 and 9 on all these channels in the DC area. Until this shutdown, we are prepared to educate Donald Trump one by one on topics we're pretty sure he doesn't know about. Here's just a taste.
It might seem like a show of strength to kill the families of terrorists, but according to the Geneva Conventions, it's actually a war crime. Not all black people live in inner cities, and not all people in inner cities are black. There's something you may not know. Appetizer for you. Entree for you. Now, I know it can sometimes feel as if you are the only person in the world. But you can see here, there are actually many non-unique people. We call those other people. Just because sometimes it's cold, that don't mean there's no global warming. You're confusing climate with weather, partner. Gabon is a country on the west coast of Africa. Tiffany. Tiffany. The unemployment rate is a carefully calculated measure derived from a monthly survey conducted by two federal agencies and has been the agreed-upon standard since 1948. And that will fall what we call the performance. Just remember, if you don't know, it's a pain in the ass. See you.
Is regularly naked. And just think about that. He might be naked in there right now. Maybe he just sneezed. Maybe there's a band-aid somewhere on his person. We don't know. We just know that he's there and we all have to live with that. But while Trump is something to go, there are two more possibilities of what he can learn. Jared Kushner and his Ivanka Trump. One of America's willing retailers, except in this case, many people have praised for it.
The only adults in the room, the moderates, the centrists, frankly Democrats, are Jared and Ivanka.
Thank God his kids are their day-to-day. They are positive influences.
His best running mate, by the way, would be Ivanka. I don't know that I've met a more composed, really beautiful and really portion.
That is quite modest in terms of what for. I've never met a more brilliant, beautiful person. I imagine that went down great with his wife and two daughters. Happy Father's Day, Dad. Did Ivanka send you anything? But the levels, the complex social issues that Jared and Ivanka have been moderating meetings. Basically, if Trump is thinking about President Biden labels would fail, they will, on behalf of all of us, guide his hand towards the Buck label. But he don't. They don't have an official contract. Ivanka is recently taking an unpaid position as assistant to the president, and as for Jared, he's seen by the hand in basically everything.
He's been planning this week's visit of the Chinese president to Mar-a-Lago, and he's also tasked with brokering peace in the Middle East. The president tapping his son-in-law to reform the criminal justice system, not to mention he's running the new Office of American Innovation, where he's responsible for reforming veteran care, tackling the opioid epidemic, and overseeing the not-so-small feat of revamping the entire federal government.
Holy shit! It is not unusual for powerful men to give their son-in-law do-nothing jobs. But top. You can't even get the nepotism right to get his and do everything job.